Hey everyone, Delia Melody here. So, you may have noticed a couple of things about me in this video. 1, I'm not wearing any makeup. 2, I haven't shaved yet today. 3, I'm not wearing my bra or my inserts. And 4, I haven't even showered yet today. But luckily smell-o-vision hasn't been invented yet, so that won't be a problem for you during this video. So there's actually a reason why I haven't done any of these things for this video. We're going to talk about passing. Now you may be asking yourself, what even is passing? What does that word mean? Well, I'll tell you one thing first. If you want to start an argument in a room full of trans people, there is no faster way to do it than by bringing this subject up. Passing is the idea of basically looking like you're not trans. Passing is kind of all the things we do to make ourselves look just like a cisgender person of the same gender. So why does this get so controversial? Well, there's a pretty good number of really good reasons for this. Let's start out by mentioning that passing can actually be a very important thing for safety and for our own psychological well-being. When most of us look in the mirror, it really hurts having to see all of the things that make us feel like we look different. It hurts getting weird looks and having people whisper about us or even talk about us out loud wherever we go. So basically we want to do everything we can to make sure that when we look in the mirror, what we see is in line with what we would expect to see from any other person who is of our gender. And when we go walking down the street or to the mall or grocery shopping, that people won't be pointing at us, staring at us, and saying really rude things at an audible level. And then there's the safety factor, which I mentioned. Because being clocked or outed, having someone realize that you're trans in a public environment and then suddenly make everyone else aware of it, can be exceedingly dangerous. Bear in mind that trans people, especially trans women, are murdered for being trans. I had to check again, and I think the count so far this year, worldwide confirmed, is up to 14, which is like 2 more than it was last month. And let's take away even the fears of being murdered, just the worries about being assaulted are pretty bad too. You usually don't see those ones in the news at all. But we're assaulted much more frequently than we're being murdered. And considering the fact that in her lifetime the average trans woman has a 1 in 12 chance of being murdered, we don't even want to get into what the chances are of being assaulted. Odds are if you're trans, unfortunately, at some point, it's probably going to happen. Or at the very least, you're going to have to defend yourself against it. So for these reasons, passing is extremely important. However, here's where it gets to be a problem. A lot of times when the subject of passing gets brought up within the trans community, we run into cases of people who do pass well putting down people who don't pass well, which is completely unacceptable. Or even putting down people just for not trying to pass well. And it's generally not because they're trying to say, hey, you're not being as safe as you should be, you should really try to protect yourself better. It generally has something to do with either implying that someone who doesn't pass well obviously is not trans enough and should not have their identity taken seriously, or saying that someone who doesn't pass well or doesn't try to pass well is somehow hurting our community by perpetuating stereotypes. So here's the thing. Some trans women don't pass well, and will never ever be able to do anything short of surgery to change that. And in some cases, even surgical intervention may not necessarily be enough for everyone in the world to look at this person and just assume that they're just like every other cisgender woman. There's nothing wrong with that. Because while we as trans people can all kind of understand the fact that there's so many things that we are just crushed about in regards to our bodies that we wish were different, so many of us really do want to look like we were never anything other than a cisgender woman, which is something we will never be. We can look like that. It's possible. But that's not us. We're still women. We're just like any other woman. But at the same time, we are different. And instead of going along with the misogynist idea in society that we should somehow cater to what the average straight man's idea of attractive is, we should be embracing our brothers and sisters who don't pass well, who don't meet misogynistic beauty standards, but who are genuinely trans. Because at no point is a trans woman not a woman. At no point is a trans man not a man. My clothing is not what makes me a woman. My makeup is not what makes me a woman. Shaving is not what makes me a woman. And when I'm finally able to get to that point, my hormone therapy and my gender reassignment surgery will not be what make me a woman. I will have hormone therapy and gender reassignment surgery because I am a woman, not the other way around. I wear the clothes I wear and the makeup I wear because I'm a woman who likes to wear those things. And there are some women who don't like to wear those things. There's some makeup that's there basically just to help give our facial features that little bit of contouring magic to help make sure that when we look in the mirror, what we see is what we want to see. But there's some trans women who just really don't even like to wear that. And that's fine, there's not a problem with that. There's some trans women who aren't really necessarily dysphoric about their facial hair. I'm not one of them, but that's fine too. But let's get down to the bottom of it. I mean, come on. Shaving is a bit time-consuming, it's painful, and some days I may just not have time for it or really feel like it or dealing with all the pounds of makeup before I do something as simple as walking out the door to put some gas in the car or grab a couple of things real quick from the store and then just come back home and stay home all day. Or going to the gym. Is it really feasible for me to put on a pound of makeup when I'm going to go sweat my ass off? Or going to the pool? That's not going to work very well either. And there are cisgender women with facial hair too. And in general, they don't like it and do everything they can to get rid of it just like most of us do, but it doesn't always work for them either. There are a few cisgender women in the world who grow full beards, just because that's how they were born. And more than one or two of them around the world have actually embraced that and turned that into part of what they consider to be their feminine beauty. Now, I get the idea that if I go out and I'm not doing everything I can to pass, there are going to be people who will not really respect my identity. I expect that, and I will generally challenge that. But at the same time, in order to advance our cause, the thing to do is not to cater to what transphobic people want us to be doing. The thing to do is to be ourselves. Let that speak for us. Because I can guarantee you, if you are a trans woman, you should probably be in agreement with me that wearing your makeup is not what makes you a woman. That wearing dresses is not what makes you a woman. So, why should we allow society to continue to believe that those are the things that make us women when they're not? Because the entire idea of a man in a dress, that myth of who trans women are, is demonstrably wrong. There are men in dresses. Those men in dresses include people like comedian Eddie Izzard. He is a man. He identifies as male. He does not experience dysphoria. He has no problem with his body. But he likes wearing dresses and makeup. Like there are cisgender women who aren't identifying as male, but don't like wearing makeup and like wearing mannish clothes. Here's an important thing to remember about clothing. Clothing does not have a gender. The person wearing the clothing has a gender. And when you start demanding that all trans people do everything they can to try to pass well, or even insisting just that they should, instead of just accepting that all trans people are beautiful and all trans people are trans, no matter what they look like, dress like, what makeup they do and do not wear, what their hair looks like, any of these other things, they don't matter. And you may ask yourself at this point, well, if some trans woman is dressed like a tomboy, has short, dykey hair, doesn't have any makeup on, how are we supposed to know and accept that she's a trans woman? The same way you know and accept that any other tomboy or dyke is a woman. Because when you ask them what their pronouns are, they will most likely say she and her. And once they've said that, there's no need to continue arguing. You don't ask, well, if you're really she, her, then why are you dressed like a man? Because she's not. She's dressed like a woman who enjoys that type of clothing and appearance. And I do talk about this a lot in regards to trans women as opposed to trans men, mainly because I am a trans woman. I don't have the necessary experience to really feel like I can always speak very well on matters for trans men, because I'm not one. But realistically, you could apply the same things. Because I'm sure that there are trans men who like wearing girly clothes, or colors, or doing girly things. That's fine, because all of these things that we call manly or girly have nothing to do with gender. They may have something to do with gender roles, but shockingly enough, gender roles have about as little to do with gender as anything in the world possibly could. They have a lot more to do with misogyny, to be quite completely frank with you. Gender roles are rooted in the idea that it's not okay for women to do certain things because they're women. And the idea that a man can generally pretty much do whatever he wants as long as it's not something girly because being a woman is bad. But in the end, the things that we assign gender roles to are things that have absolutely nothing to do with what is between our legs or what our brain thinks should be between our legs. Because when you get right down to it, even though gender and sex are not the same thing, they are very linked. Gender generally is what the brain feels its sex should be, regardless of what the sex of the body is. Gender roles have absolutely nothing to do with sex or gender in any way, shape, or form. They're just these things that society decided outlined what was okay and not okay for you to do if you're a man or a woman. Which is silly and stupid because we are all human beings completely capable of doing whatever we want. So when you see a trans woman or a trans man and they're not passing well, it doesn't need to be brought up. We're well aware that we will be able to be a lot safer and also probably experience a lot more fulfillment with ourselves as we currently are when we make those efforts. And we're aware of the opposite effect we're going to have to deal with if one day we wake up and decide that we just don't have the time or feel like putting in the effort that day. And it changes absolutely nothing about our gender. I'm much more comfortable and much less dysphoric when I pull out all the bells and whistles. But at the same time, I know I'm a woman no matter what I look like. And that should be enough for you. Because one of the key things about being trans is that you don't get to decide what my gender is. I do. Me. Only me. How do I know I'm really a woman? Because I know. Because I am. And all you need in order to know I'm a woman is for me to say so. And in the end, how does that impact you anyway? Here's a big hint. It doesn't. It has no impact on your life at all. So this has drug on for a bit, so let me reiterate my main point. If you're trans and you don't put in every effort possible to make sure that you're passing as cisgender before you go out of the house, it may put you at risks for certain types of transphobic behavior. Please remember that that has nothing to do with you and everything to do with the fact that a lot of people are transphobic. And also bear in mind that in some cases, no matter what you do, you're not going to pass 100% of the time, or even 50% of the time, or any of the time. So if at some point you decide that that doesn't matter to you and you just want to be treated as yourself no matter where you go or what you look like, do you. Have fun. Be yourself. Don't let society force you to do something that you don't want to do just because they say you should have to do it to make them feel more comfortable. Because I guarantee you, no matter what you do, at some point, someone is going to clock it. Someone is going to be rude. Someone is going to be transphobic. That's a part of our lives. And you are so amazingly strong for being brave enough to go out into the world every day, having to deal with that. I know it's not easy, but trust me, society is changing. Society will continue to change. And hopefully someday soon, passing isn't something we'll even have to talk about at all. As always, thanks for watching. Be sure to like, share, subscribe, follow me on Tumblr and Twitter, and if you'd like to support my journey to be able to transition, I do have a GoFundMe. The links for everything is in the description. Until next time, be yourself.